towards more danger. And they tell me we lost one of our own. So it cannot be in vain. We have to complete this mission. I rant, I'm angry, but I'm defeated. Because honestly, I think we need to complete the mission as well. So I go quiet, and we get to Lagdera. And when we get there, we take the vaccines, the joy on the faces of the healthcare providers, the children that came to receive us, made me temporarily forget I almost lost my life. We get back to Garissa, and I'm in this room alone, and I break down. My wells can't stop. And at that point, I say, I won't do this again. I'm going to love my husband, I'm going to love my babies, and I'm going to be near them to take care of them. So we go home, and I tell my husband that I have decided to not go back to the danger zones. And he says, that's weird, because you're happiest when you're at work. He thought he didn't like me working. But well, I didn't want to dive into that conversation. So I stayed home, and then 8 months in, I'm not okay. And we can never have a happy moment in that house. And he tells me, just go back to work, just go back to work. We can't live like this. So I make a call, and I'm back to work. But this time, I choose how I work. And I go to the field 40% of my time, and 60% of it I'm at home, and I'm able to take care of them and protect them and love on them. And what I've learned is that a strong woman is a woman who knows when to stop.
Chaotic, beautiful energy of a house full of kids and animals is exactly what keeps me grounded right now. Here's our host, Lebo Mashile, to close us out.
Joburg, you have been spectacular. So much. We love how animated you are. We love the way you live so much. We love how animated you are. We love the way you listen. We love the way you don't listen when you listen, even the way you're on stage with everybody. You rock. You fill us up, and we hope that these stories have filled you up. Go.
The Moth Radio Hour. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time.
The live host of this episode of the Radio Hour was Lebo Mashile. Lebo is an award-winning poet, author, producer, and actress. The radio show was produced by me, Jay Allison, and Sarah Austin Jeunesse, who also hosted along with Lebo. And she directed the stories in the show along with Jennifer Hickson. Was produced by Haley Evans and Chris Boluyat. The Moss leadership team includes Gina Duncan, Christina Norman, Marina Puche, Jordan Cardinale, Caledonia Cairns, Kate Keller, Suzanne Rust, Sarah Jane Johnson, and Patricia Urania. Moss stories are true as
in about
remembered
2
and
minutes,
affirmed
the
by
news should come on.
storytellers. Our theme music is
I
by
seem
The
to remember
Drift.
there
Other
being
music
good
in this
news.
hour from Kuroko, Blue Dot Sessions, and Percussions. The Moth Radio Hour is produced by Atlantic Public Media in Woods
We'll
Hole,
soon
Massachusetts, and presented by PRX. The Moth would like to thank the Gates Foundation for their support of the Moth's Global Community Program. For more about our podcast, for information on pitching us your own story, and to learn all about The Moth, go to our website, themoth.org.
This is CPR News, 90.1 FM
Okay.
KCFR
Hello.
Denver,
We're about to
1490
listen
AM
to the news.
KCFC Boulder, on HD
Hello.
at 90.1
Welcome to
FM
the live
at
stream.
CPR.org, and on your smart speaker, say play CPR News.
We're about to listen to the news.
When you
In about
need
30
some
seconds.
calm in a busy day, take a deep breath with CPR Classical.
Hello.
88.1 in Denver. Or tell your smart speaker
Thanks
to
for
play
being on the
CPR
live stream.
Classical.
Denver chef Penelope Wong was flying high with her James Beard Award. Now she's flying high with a United Airlines deal. She developed dishes for passengers, which comes with a lot of specifications.
how much it had to weigh, what it had to fit into, how they pack it, how they're serving it, how they're heating it. I had never given
What are
it
you
any
guys
thought.
doing?
I'm Ryan Warner. Join Colorado Matters at 9 this morning on CPR News and KRCC.
Here comes the news.
Hello, welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Ansoi in Nairobi and Rob Young in London.
Pakistan is making a further attempt to reopen negotiations between Iran and the United States.
Thanks, Pakistan.
As Washington prepares to unveil its latest round of economic sanctions
Who's
on
going to get Trump
Tehran.
to admit he
In
lost?
anticipation of that, the Iranian currency has fallen further in value. We'll go live to Tehran.
The BBC gains rare access to the office of a provincial governor in Afghanistan. We hear how Taliban officials grapple with everyday issues like divorce.
Women are mindless. They are deficient in intellect. They don't know a thing. What would you do with a divorced daughter? You can't kill her. You need to marry her with someone else.
And President Trump says Canada
What
wants
the
the
hell?
benefits of being a state without being one after trade talks between the two nations collapse. We'll hear a Canadian
hell is
perspective
that?
after Bulletin of News.
What the hell is any of that?
BBC News with Chris Barrow. The Pakistani Chief of Defence Forces travels to Iran today to try to reopen negotiations between Tehran and the United States. His visit comes as Washington prepares to unveil more economic sanctions against Iran.
Oh my
These
god.
are expected to punish countries
wish
which do
Trump would
business
give
with
up.
Tehran. Sanjay Dasgupta reports.
Field Marshal Munir's visit
Trump
to
is
Tehran
such a loser.
coincides with an expected announcement on Monday of further US sanctions on Iran, which US officials say would be the toughest yet. Tehran remains defiant and continues to threaten strikes on
What did
any
they
oil
even
tanker
do?
in the Strait of Hormuz that it
Defend
considers
themselves?
unauthorized. But its economy is under pressure, battered by war, by a US naval blockade, and by high inflation. Its
Yeah, what's up
currency,
with
the
that?
rial, has hit a record low.
The coalition of the willing group of Ukraine's allies is due to meet in Kyiv today as the country marks 35 years of independence. The meeting will be chaired by the British Prime Minister Andy Burnham, who's on his first foreign trip as leader. Dan Johnson is in Kyiv.
Mr. Burnham will attend Ukraine's Independence Day celebrations and chair his first meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, the partnership of more than 35 nations backing Ukraine. He'll meet President Zelensky almost a month on from their first meeting in Portsmouth. Mr. Burnham will say he wants the Ukrainian people to hear directly from him that British support will not waver as long as it takes, and that Russia's threats against the UK will only strengthen that resolve.
I hope Putin
He'll
doesn't
announce the
attack
release
the
of classified
meeting.
information enabling Ukraine to produce its own version of the Storm Shadow or Scalp long-range cruise missile, which was
Okay.
designed jointly with France.
The president of the European Football Federation has ruled himself out as a candidate to replace the head of the world governing body. Alexander Shefferin has been one of the main critics of the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, following the collapse of his proposed part sale of its competitions, including the World Cup.
That means he's
More
out.
details from Jane Douglas.
Alexander Shefferin has led the revolt against the president of world football,
good.
stating that the body he heads, UEFA, would boycott FIFA competitions unless Gianni Infantino resigned. However, he has ruled himself out of the running to succeed Infantino were he to leave. In an interview with the Rest is Politics podcast, Shefferin said he didn't want the job because he loved working at UEFA and because his credibility would be higher if he wasn't interested in the position.
Reports from Western
Good
Sudan
points.
say the army has
I don't care about
targeted
soccer,
two
but I care about getting rid of that guy that
paramilitary
gave
convoys over the
Trump a
weekend.
fake
Militia
peace
allied to the
medal.
armed forces say they hit an RSF convoy close to the border with Libya on Sunday, destroying close to 50 vehicles and seizing another 30. On Saturday, Chad accused the Sudanese military of launching drone strikes against a convoy inside Chadian territory. World News from the BBC. State media in Syria says the Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani met the Israeli spy chief Roman Goffman in Jordan on Sunday to try to defuse tensions between the two countries. The talks were brokered by the United States, which wants to restart negotiations between the two countries. Israel carried out 2 attacks on Syria this past week. Syrian officials said the meeting focused on practical mechanisms to halt Israeli strikes. A wildfire continues to burn uncontrolled in the US state of Nevada, forcing tens of thousands to leave their homes and schools to close. The Hawk Blaze on the outskirts of the city of Reno has charred more than 50 square kilometers of land and injured at least 6 people. The sheriff of Washoe County, Darren Balam, urged people to be prepared.
We have over 1,000 plus first responders on this fire, and
Have
our
a
main
favorite
priority
spoon.
is the safety of you and our communities. Stay informed, watch outside, have your go bag ready with all your medications, valuables that you can put in a bag, and please be ready to go.
Blame Trump
Government
and
ministers
Putin
in
and
Guinea have
Netanyahu
said
and
they'll
oil
do all they
companies for
can to help victims of the
making the
country's
climate
third
so
deadly
messed up.
rubbish accident in the past decade. 31 people are now known to have died when a mountain of waste collapsed in a poor neighbourhood of the capital, Conakry. At least 22 others were injured. Rescue teams are continuing to search through the waste for others trapped underneath.
What the hell?
The online fast fashion retailer Shein has announced it will make its long-awaited market debut on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange on September the 1st, with nearly 280 million shares on offer. Founded in China but headquartered in Singapore, Shein won Beijing's approval last month to make its initial public offering in Hong Kong. Earlier plans to list in New York and London were thwarted by regulatory hurdles. The listing will put the company's value at around $28 billion. That's the latest. BBC News.
The then YouTube question they wanted to ask is, have a favorite spoon?
Thanks very much indeed for that bulletin. Hello, your Always Newsday
Have
from
a
the
favourite
BBC World
spoon?
Service, live from Nairobi with Anne Soy, and from London with me, Rob Young. Thanks for joining us today. Coming up over the next half an hour, you're going to hear stories from Afghanistan, from Iran, and from Canada.
And in business, Ijeoma Ndukwe from our business desk will tell us about the Chinese fast fashion giant Shein's stock market listing. As ever, we welcome your messages on anything you hear on the program. Our text number, which works for WhatsApp as well, is +44 77 86 20 50 85.
Now, the United States is preparing a new round of economic sanctions for Iran. The American Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says
They're
that
all
these will be the
traitors.
toughest sanctions in history.
All the Trump
in
regime are
anticipation of
traitors.
these being unveiled in the afternoon US time, Iran's currency, the rial, has plunged to yet another record low. Well, Iran has weathered economic sanctions for nearly 50 years since the Islamic Revolution of 1979, but the President Masoud Pezeshkian has acknowledged that Iranians are facing many problems, but he insisted the nation would stand firm in the face of what he called aggression.
It is aggression.
The perception from the US was that Iran would become Venezuela. Not only has this not happened, but Iran has become a power that's astonished the world with its display of resistance, solidarity, and integrity. We are in an all-out military, economic, and security war in the face of the most devastating set of sanctions. But we're standing firm to secure the future of our people.
Well, let's cross live to Tehran
better
and
than what
speak
the
to
Trump
Dr.
regime's doing,
Fouad
trying to
Azadi,
destroy
who's
our
a political
country.
analyst and professor at the
And
Faculty of
yours.
World Studies at the University of
Sad.
Tehran. Welcome back to the program. Just describe to us the daily effect on ordinary people's lives of the collapse in the value of the currency.
You know, the lower segments of society suffer more, and this is why United States has these sanctions to put pressure on ordinary citizens, so they get tired and try to maybe do something with the government, maybe have riots and change the government. That's the basic idea behind sanctions, to create a setting where people are desperate because of economic pressures, and they do something that Trump and Netanyahu are interested in.
But what is the daily impact of the collapse of the rial?
Inflation, especially on food items. Other things also get more expensive.
Same here.
But generally, in
YouTube's
especially
question.
bigger cities, you get higher prices, which puts pressure on ordinary citizens.
Well, when you talk about inflation, there's rising level of prices. What are you seeing when you go into the shops? The various statistical agencies put the level of price rises at about 70 to 80% a year, which is pretty much a doubling in 12 months. Wages are not going up by anything like that, so ordinary Iranians will be feeling the pinch. What is going up the most in the shops?
You know, what is interesting is that everything is available, but it's expensive. So there is no food shortage.
Same here.
People who can afford it don't see any change in their daily lives. But they are more expensive. So if you're on a fixed income, then it would be more difficult to manage your groceries and basically
I'll
be
do a
able
real live
to
stream sometime soon.
keep the same standard of living as before this economic war was imposed on Iran.
Well, you say before this economic war was imposed on Iran, there were mass protests at the beginning of the year, which were in part because of a change in a subsidy program. So the government's been struggling to manage the economy for some
They
time.
made it worse.
What
with
is the plan at the
economic
moment?
war.
Is there a plan to try to bring down
Yeah, this is the BBC,
rapidly
I guess,
rising
but it's on
prices to
NPR.
try to stabilize the currency?
On CPR here in
You
Colorado.
know, the country is facing this blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, which is an act of war on the international law. So what the government is trying to do is to use the land borders to basically get the same imported items to land instead of sea. We have another sea, Caspian Sea in the north. So that is going to be used more than before. They're going to, they're providing, maybe you have heard this, a basic income for every citizen.
Oh, that's good.
So they can manage these
We need that
difficulties.
here in America.
And so you get 2 million tomans, 20 million reals for every member of the household. So I have 4 children, me and my wife, six people, times 20 million reals. That's what we get. And I teach at the University of Tehran, so I'm not in the lower segments of society, but that minimum income is given to every citizen, anyone who lives in the country.
You mentioned the Strait of Hormuz a moment ago.
That's
It was
very
Iran
good.
that
Wish we
first
had that here in
weaponized the
USA.
Strait of Hormuz, bombing ships before the United States imposed its blockade. Just a final point, though, on the American sanctions we're expecting. They're thought likely to be secondary sanctions, so nations that trade with Iran would be subject to the American sanctions. Do you see the likes of China, of Russia, turning their backs on Iran to avoid these sanctions?
Your first statement was inaccurate. It was the United States that weaponized the Strait of Hormuz by attacking Iran illegally. There was no UN resolution, and they have been using the Strait of Hormuz, supplying these bases in the Persian Gulf to organize this illegal attack on Iran, and we lost more than 5,000
And on the point of the secondary sanctions?
Civilians. Russia and China realize that when you have Trump and Netanyahu going on a rampage, killing people, attacking infrastructure, that is not good for any country, including Russia and China. So Iran, Russia, and China are going to stand up to the bullies that
Putin
kill
controls
little
Trump.
girls, the Epstein class, that rapes little
Putin
American girls
designed
and
the
kills
Epstein
little
class.
Iranian girls.
Fuad Azadi, who's a
Putin
political
ordered
analyst
Trump to
at
order the
University
attacks
of
on your
Tehran. Mohammed Islam
schoolgirls.
Sierra Leone says American sanctions on Iran will not
Sorry,
change Iranian
but-
activities or reopen the Strait of Hormuz because Iran is still going strong. I say bravo to Iran. But Akai, listening in Uganda, says the fact that President Trump is initiating more tariffs on Iran is a sign that the military option has failed.
Well, that and
to bring
Trump's just a
Iran to
loser. He
its
keeps
knees.
losing in every single way he can lose. Just keeps losing and losing and losing. He's a giant loser. The biggest loser anybody's ever seen.
To Afghanistan now,
Trump
and
just
the
keeps
BBC
losing.
World Service has gained rare access inside the country under the Taliban. 5 years
Alright, I'm
after
gonna
the
get going
extreme
now.
Islamist movement returned to power, the BBC has spent time with senior figures, former
That sounds like a
insurgents
good program.
turned politicians, to see how they are governing a country
See you
in
next time.
crisis. They've also spoken to Afghans
Yeah, he
living
said,
once
I love
again under
NPR.
the
It's
same
so calming.
hardline rule
Yes,
that the
BBC
group
NewsHour is
first
my favorite.
imposed
British
decades
people make
ago.
the news sound more
The
interesting.
BBC's Kawoon
Did
Hamouche
someone say
reports.
British? They did.
In Shibirghan, northern
Alright,
Afghanistan,
we're just listening to your
Taliban
news
governor
here in
Abdullah
America.
Sarhadi starts his day.
But I'm gonna
Once
go.
a Guantanamo
So check out my
Bay
content.
detainee, Sarhadi now
Comment on
works
my
for the
content.
country's supreme
See you next
leader.
time.
enforcing strict Sharia in his region. The BBC has been given rare access to his office to film some of his daily work.
See you next time. Thanks for looking forward to my next live stream, Fish.
To various problems. One case dominates the day, however. That of an 18-year-old woman who is seeking a divorce from her husband, accusing him of abuse and beatings. She is wearing a full veil and sunglasses. Her clasped hands in black gloves. To protect her identity, we have had someone else voice her words.
I'm ready to be executed, but not live with him.
The governor tells her she should either continue the marriage or apply for a khula, a form of divorce initiated by the wife, which could mean having to repay her dowry to her husband. Under the Taliban, it is very difficult for a woman to get a divorce without the husband's consent. Despite this, she wants to proceed.
Ask yourself, who would marry me after I get my divorce? You'll have to compromise a lot, or you'll lose your dignity and honor.
Mr. Governor, my honor and dignity have already been ruined by him.
Dismissing her to the next room, the governor discusses the matter with male officials, bodyguards, and her husband.
Women are mindless. They are deficient in intellect. They don't know a thing. What would you do with a divorced daughter? You can't kill her. You need to marry her with someone else. Would you marry such a girl with your son?
The woman's father says they will continue to fight for the separation. The Taliban's policies today are similar to the hardline interpretation of Islamic religious law they imposed in the 1990s, and those who oppose them have gone into hiding, especially women who have been erased from public life. When they do fight back, they face harsh crackdowns. In the week the Taliban came to power, many women took to the streets to protest. Huda had a successful career and an active life, but now we meet in secret. You have changed her name and voice to protect her safety. Why do you think the Taliban want to restrict women? I ask her.
I think the Taliban are scared. They are scared of educated women. They know educated women won't give birth to ignorant beings such as the Taliban. They restrict women so they wouldn't be able to raise wise men, because that would be the end of the Taliban.
Upon returning to power, the Taliban said they had changed. 5 years on, it's a country run by men for men. In a lavish press center funded by the Americans for the previous government, we sit down with the public face of the Taliban, their spokesman known as Zabihullah Mujahid. You promised that you will respect human rights, you will allow women to participate in all aspects of life, work, and study. Why did you fail to keep your promise?
I mentioned Sharia as a condition. We are committed to women's rights, freedom of speech, and other things within Sharia. We must scale everything up according to Sharia.
As an insurgency, the Taliban proved they could survive. The question now is whether they can govern a country in crisis, and for how long.
Kawun Hamush there reporting.
That was a good report.
Time now for some sports news with Isaac Fennin.
Yeah, the president of the European Football's Federation has ruled himself out as a candidate to replace the head of World Football's governing body. Alexander Ceferins has been one of the leaders of the revolt against FIFA President Gianni Infantino following the collapse of his proposed part sale.
I'm glad he's terrible because glad he's on the way out because he's terrible for giving Trump a fake peace prize.
Because he loved working at UEFA and his credibility would be tarnished if he was seen as a potential successor. In the Premier League, Liverpool were rescued by a last-minute Dominic Szoboszlai penalty as they drew 2-2